and welcome to Coach Talk. We're here discussing relationships, and we're talking about challenges within the relationships that we are faced today. I have with me a very special guest, Dr. Zainab Al Mukhtar. Welcome, Zainab.
Hi, thank you.
How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit about yourself so the audience have a bit of awareness.
Okay, so I am a principal dentist and facial aesthetic practitioner, and I own a practice in Harrow-on-the-Hill in northwest London. And I also teach facial aesthetics, and I'm also a mother. So identity is one of those things when you ask somebody tell me a bit about you. It's easy to just say this is an overview.
I'm sure there's so much more to you, right?
Yeah, these are the things that are on paper.
Absolutely. Well, that rolls on nicely to our topic. We have challenges today in relationships, and I think especially for women when we reach certain stages in our lives. And for one, I want to talk about firstly is, it's difficult being a mum. Okay.
Challenging.
It's just very challenging. But on top of that, being a working mum, it's quite demanding. And we do put pressure on ourselves.
Yeah.
And there's also a perception that people expect. And we also sometimes try to conform with the pressures.
Yeah.
So what have you come across when it comes to, the challenges that are faced around being a working mom, especially such a highly professional, career that you're based in?
Yeah. It's definitely very challenging. The main challenge is time management.
Okay.
So it's the juggle. It's, there's 24 hours in a day, and how do you split that day so that you're still giving enough time to your work and to your child, so that you're performing well in all areas of life. So it's literally time management is probably the biggest challenge.
Okay.
Once you nail it, you can totally achieve that balance, but it's not easy. So a lot of organization is really important. The other is not exhausting yourself too much at home, not exhausting yourself too much at work, so that you still have the energy for your other role.
So how do you balance that personally?
For me, I'm not going to say that it's easy, because I think that, on the outside, it can sometimes look so easy when somebody is doing everything that, they seem to be doing. Sometimes I feel like I'm in total control of it. Sometimes I feel like the balance is becoming tipped and I have to rebalance a little bit. It's not always consistent because the nature of my work is that people need me, and sometimes the needs change. Yeah. So sometimes my child needs me more, and I have to prioritize even more and let that be my focus for a bit longer. Sometimes my work becomes urgent and I have to prioritize that. So it's not always in that 100% balance. It's just making it work all the time.
Yeah.
How I do it is I commit in my mind that I'll work part-time. But when I'm at work, I'm at work.
Perfect.
So I'm present at work, my mind is there, my focus is on my patients.
Yes.
I'm 100% there, which means that I have to have my child in a position where I'm at total peace of mind.
Yeah.
And I fully trust the person that she's with and that she's happy.
Yes.
Had she not settled well in her environment, had she not been in a place where I had total peace of mind, things may be different.
But there are stages, because I'm sure at the beginning it was challenging even for her to settle.
Yeah.
So I guess we got to give each other time.
Yeah. So
it doesn't happen straight away sometimes.
No, it doesn't happen straight away. And I wasn't actually planning to go back to work for a year after I had her. But the reality of it is that I had been in the dentistry world for 12, 13, 14 years, constantly working hard, that for me, it was a welcome break to have a baby. But 6-7 months into it, I felt like that part of me of being a dentist and being at work, I really missed. And I was beginning to feel that what happens after doing that for so long is it does become part of your identity. And I think, that's different for everybody. Yeah. But for me, it became a big part of my identity, and I'm sure many others will relate. And so I felt like I just needed to tap back into it a little bit. So at the 7-month point, my daughter was 7 months old, I felt that for my emotional, spiritual, mental well-being, it was better that I tap myself back into work a little bit. So I went back 1 day a week, but I was very, very worried about how I was going to, whether it was the right thing to do. And I didn't put too much pressure on myself. I just said, let me try. So first I organized a bit of childcare. I found somebody I trust, and I did it extremely gradually. I went back to work 1 day a week. Then when I saw that daughter was fine, I was fine, everything worked. I went back twice, 3 days, etc. And then built it up from there. Now I do 4 very long days, and occasionally a 5th day. But my key now is that I've always only ever increased my time at work when I saw that everything was okay at home. But something's got to give. It does mean that...
Does it really have to give?
Yes. I'm not going to pretend that, I really rate women if they really have got it all. But I do have to say that, I remember mornings where before going to work, I was cooking her lunch. And thinking about her dinner, and then leaving in a rush, and then getting to work, then I'm totally at work. But the minute I get back, I'm on duty again. I'm now mum. So what gives is the you time. Okay. It's
not just you time. What about the impact on the relationships and people around you as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There's always going to be those other things as well. So it's a choice, and you've got to decide what makes you happy. What do you need for you?
And you're prioritizing.
And you're prioritizing. What's most rewarding for you to be doing in life? For me, it's such a huge part of me to be at work that I just can't not be there. I feel like I've got a lot to give at work. I've got a lot to give as a mom, so I'm just trying to do both. The other things you touched on, so relationships with spouse, relationship with friends, etc. What gives there is that there's less time to invest in all of that. But the time that I do invest has to be quality time.
Good. That's what I was about to say. Because it's not about, when I questioned you about having to give, I think that it's not about that. I think sometimes, we think that we have to balance that pie equally, but it's not about it. Like you said, it's the quality time. So when you give 5 minutes of quality, it actually can overturn that 1 hour that you need to give somebody. And you can be smart about it. So you might not see your friends every weekend, but you might see them every other weekend or even once a month. But also you need to have understanding people, especially the close ones around you, and also with support. Because I also hear on the other end of things is people judge, that women are going to work, and obviously, it takes away time from you being a mom. But, for children, I think it's healthy. Like you said, if you are putting your time and effort in the quality wise, all they know is mom comes home at 6 o'clock. And that's it, because there are moms that are all day at home. They don't necessarily give that time.
But they're not totally present. They're sometimes frustrated. They're sometimes resenting what they're missing. They're resenting that they're not doing the work that they enjoy as well. It's one of those things. There's no right or wrong.
No, there isn't.
And this is, I know that a lot of women will relate to what I'm saying, but I know there's a lot of women out there that choose to have a longer career break because that works for them, whether it's because actually maybe their work isn't as rewarding. It could be that their work is totally fine to put on hold and come back to, which is okay, but it's still a sacrifice. It could be that they feel very passionate about being at home. It could be they don't have the support at that period of time till their kids go back to school. Various reasons. It could be for some women that their motivation to go back to work isn't because it's necessarily something they're very passionate about, but they need the financial income. So many different things drive different women. And the crux of it is knowing your why. That's going to define your decisions. If you know why you're doing something, it crystallizes your decision. So you've got to do a bit of soul searching and think, why am I doing this? Is it because I feel I'm not performing as well as a mum because I'm a bit frustrated that I'm missing out on my work, or I'm de-skilling? I really need to get back to work a little bit. I want to balance and try and do both. Is it because I have I'm under financial pressure, I need to go back to work? Is it because everybody around me is working and I feel inadequate? If that's the case, really look back inside again and just think, but why? Because if that's the case, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make you happy.
Exactly. It's just probably when you add the pressure, and again, that's just another addition of you not being happy because you're not happy, because your only happiness is from within ourselves. It really is. And we need to start doing things that are for us, regardless of what the opinions and what everyone else is doing. It's really important.
Very important. So, I mean, I can only use myself as an example, and I feel like I have I'm trying to be very responsible with my message. For me, going to work, I come back and I feel very refreshed. So although I'm mentally exhausted in a way, and in a way very physically exhausted, I feel my emotional well-being is so much better because I'm constantly giving at work. So I come home and I feel fulfilled. So I just feel content with it. So I'm therefore totally present and totally giving and totally loving. I'm very, very present with my daughter. It means that when I'm at home, my phone is tucked away.
Yes.
Anything about work is really away. And that's the only way it's going to work.
I think we need a lot of organizational skills and being really tolerant and disciplined about life.
Yeah.
Because if things do come up as well, we can handle it better.
Yeah.
And again, that also comes over time, because when you start off being a mom, you're still finding your feet, especially if it's your first one.
Yeah.
And even the second one, it can be a little bit more challenging because it's another person there and you think it's going to be like before. And maybe first time you get more support than the second time round. Sometimes you've forgotten, whether it's from the other partner or from family or whatever it may be, because everyone's on their own journey.
Yeah.
So how do you manage the decision making? Because, you know, being a woman and being a mom, as well as, you know, having careers, like, are there other people in your life that you feel that overpowers or you have to consider when it comes to these decisions, especially when it comes to work?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I would say is that when you live in a household that means there is you, your children, and a spouse, everybody needs to be okay with the setup. So you can't just decide that you're going to go back to work, but your child is totally unsettled. You don't have the support. Your husband's not very happy about it. You will end up being so frustrated, so unhappy, and constantly stressed. So you've got to have the right setup, to be honest.
What happens in a scenario, say that you want to go to work and your child is happy, but your husband's really not happy, because there are certain societies that, you know, where they feel that the mum should be in those first early years at home. Now, how would you sort of like address issues like that and give some sort of like awareness as to how we would overcome that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really important to have these conversations before you have children, but really before you even enter a relationship, is to align your visions in life.
Yes.
And it works well if your husband has the same vision and is understands your passion towards your work and understands that you will be making some sacrifices, but it'll be worth it in other ways. And that your time at home is going to be quality time, and that it makes you a happier human being. So therefore,
it all filters.
You know, a happier human being is easier to live with, and everything's in a way happy. But of course, the husband's making some sacrifices too. Doesn't mean he's always going to have dinner hot and ready on the table at 6, because that's when we've just arrived. So there's going to have to be a bit more teamwork. So there's all those things, and that those discussions should happen earlier on. If they haven't happened, you're in a trickier position. But it then just comes down to communication, doesn't it? It's just communicating your needs, sharing, not forcing it, because no one's going to be happy, I think, in that position. But husbands need to be understanding about this as well and be up for a bit of teamwork. It does probably mean that you'll have to be a bit more balanced about it. So doing less work, but doing maybe just a little bit, 1 or 2 days, less hours, but at least you're doing a bit, so you're getting a bit of the both worlds. It's just finding a way that works. I would not be able to have a clear-cut answer for that, but I think that the foundation of that's going to be communicating, and just like any other problem solving, just going to have to talk it through and find a compromise.
And okay, so you're dealing with an adult, you can make that communication and you can have maybe an understanding, whether you've discussed it from before or even afterwards. How about children? A lot of the times I do hear that, you know, children don't want their parents, especially their mummies, to go back to work. And sometimes it can affect them. And I have heard scenarios, not all the time, that when they've chosen to leave their child after the first one, the second time round, they won't do it because they've realized that sometimes it can be detrimental to their development. And it can hold maybe the child back in being comfortable and settled in nursery, because a lot of studies do show that you know, being at home or, you know, delaying education is actually much more well-being for the child development in the future. Just like in the Netherlands, they actually don't go back to work very early, and the child does not go to school. Like, we're in a society here where there's pressure to go back, whether you're passionate or not. And so that's why there's early years, you know, nursery and care and all of that stuff. Then what's the impact on the child? And if the child is constantly and consistently unhappy, then what would be the advice, or what sort of awareness and insight do you think that could be shared now?
That's really tricky, and again,
Yeah.
no clear, it's not black and white, because a child can be.
And you have heard of these scenarios, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
But what we need to understand is that all children are different.
Exactly.
Children are so important, and their early years are so important, and our roles as mothers, it's number one.
Yeah.
So you've got to be very insightful and intuitive to your child's response to this change. If your child seems happy, if your child has created a new bond with the person looking after them, is happy to see you when you come home, sleeping well, eating well, and all around seems well settled, not crying with huge distress when you leave, constantly for a long time.
But sometimes I find that if they might cry at the beginning, afterwards they're okay as well. So you need to assess it quite clearly.
Yeah, this is a topic actually that is very close to my heart, because recently my daughter's 3 years old, and just recently we started nursery. So she's had a nanny at home for the last 2 years, and recently nursery. When I first put her into nursery, I was very anxious about whether she will settle easily.
Yeah.
And having talked to other mums, I thought it was going to be, like you said, a few days of maybe her feeling like that, and then she'll be fine. And what happened is the first 2 days she went in very happy, and then on day 3, day 4, she started to cling and she was unhappy. And what I found is that this was a point in my life where I had to prioritize her now. So I could see that she wasn't going to settle overnight. Mm-hmm. I could see it needed more of my intervention. I needed to be there more in the mornings. I needed to show her that I trusted the staff.
And
how
how
the rest
old?
Of it.
Sorry, is she
3 years old?
So it's hard to just again communicate.
Yeah, it is, and I had to develop that trust where she feels it's a secure environment. All the rest of it. So I had to tap into her emotions. So I had to take time off work every morning for about 6 weeks, and I did that. And I was very fortunate that I had the team who were able to.
And you're in a position to do that. A
lot
of people do not have that.
Yeah.
If they're working for a company, for example, it could be a fact that they actually have to take a complete break from work. Because not everyone's accommodating.
It's not easy, and this is where challenges might arise, where some mums feel they've got to rush to work and they've got no choice. And that's really challenging, and my heart goes out to mums. Like, it was really, really heartbreaking for me. And I could not leave her distressed. So for me, that's a point where my personal parenting way is attachment parenting. So I find it very hard to just say goodbye and find her completely distressed and say she'll be okay. I like the gradual approach to things, and for her to feel very secure in her environment before I step away. So in the same way I did the gradual thing with me going back to work, now that she was starting a new environment, I had to take a step back from work, realign my priorities, be with her for a few weeks, and when she's now settled, I'm back into the morning routine at work. So that was a huge juggle. And this is an example where, as a mom, you've got to kind of be a little bit able to be flexible at times where your child's needs just suddenly go up, and it can happen overnight. And it's not easy
at the
for
young
moms.
age.
It's not easy. This is where it can get really, really, really challenging. So this is how I coped with it. I think in many situations I've spoken to some mums who have actually said, okay, fine, we're going to abandon this nursery project for now. I'll revisit this in the summer holiday. And they've had to just leave it for now and then come back to it later. I've talked to some mums, and I speak to lots of mums because a lot of my patients are mums. And they'll say, we just had to change nursery because she wasn't settling in that one. We tried something else. And it's all trial and error with,
absolutely.
And so it's just finding what works. This is just one of those things where you can't be robotic about it, and you've just got to keep being adaptable.
Yeah, but it just goes to show that, outsiders that do have sort of judgment on moms, and especially working, things like that, they need to be considerate because it is a struggle.
Yeah.
And I think the more you are in key with who you are, what you want, and like you said, the why especially, and being able to adjust and, have that intuition as well, because what's around you and in your home is important.
Yeah.
And it will actually help your relationship with your child, with your spouse, and having understanding people around you and supportive people around you to encourage you.
Yeah.
Because actually it's quite a breakdown to some people as well, having so much adjustments in such a short space of time. And even not sometimes having the choice to make those adjustments, and at what cost. So I think we've touched on a lot, and I think that, challenges exist and there's plenty more out there. I mean, we've concentrated on women and obviously being high performers in their careers, which is quite a few out there. So that's why I wanted to tap into this. But was there anything else you'd like to share before we end this episode?
I think my last message is to always look back on what is your why. and trying not to put too much pressure on yourself as a mother to think you have to have it all and you have to do it all. It's just looking back on what motivates me, what is the cost benefit, so what's the pros and cons, and reevaluating all the time before making huge decisions like that. And appreciating that every situation is different. I really, really respect a lot of my friends who took years off and only went back to work when their kids were in school.
And it is possible, by the way.
Totally possible.
That's really important
to
highlight.
But it's all about looking at the emotional well-being as a mother as well. You've got to be well in your emotional well-being, in your sense of purpose in life, so that you're also performing really well as a mother and not being stale.
Actually, you brought up something. You just brought up a thought in my mind, which I quickly want to address, is the fact that we do feel guilty as well.
There's so much guilt in parenting all the time, mums and dads, all the time.
Absolutely, and you don't need to feel guilty because, like you said, it's important for us to feel healthy mentally in order for that to be transferred in us being better parents and having better relationships. So,
and if you're well in yourself, you're setting a good example for your children as well. So there's all of that, but I still would also stress balance, prioritizing, something I'm still always striving. You know, sometimes it's like
going
this,
to tip now and again.
It's going to tip both ways. So, but it's always striving for that balance. And good luck to all the mums out there and the dads that are juggling.
Well, thank you so much. You've highlighted again everything that I was hoping to hear, that hopefully will give insight to our viewers, knowing that relationships is tough, being a mom, being a working mom, having high performing careers and demanding lifestyle. But it can work. You look beautiful and you're managing well.
Thank you.
So it really does show outwardly as well. And I'm sure inwardly as well, you know, you are striving to only increase and improve yourself so that you can have that balance even more, you know, better.
My strive is balance.
Yes.
And that's it. I don't want to be a pro at this but not good at this. And then a pro at that.
Absolutely.
And not good at this.
Successful people is literally having a well-balanced life. So, you know, that's what I'm all about, is sharing this so that people can have that awareness and they can take it in their lives and move forward to living something a little bit more happy and fulfilled. Thank you so much, Zainab. It was a pleasure. My pleasure to have you today.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for watching, dear viewers. And hopefully we will continue in the next episode with more insight into relationships. Thank you so much. Goodbye.